Tonight on Huckabee, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, author and columnist Gordon Chang, the comedy of Chad Thornsberry, and music from Gordon Moat. That's Trey Corley and the Music City Connection. And I'm your guest announcer, Old Whispering Bill Anderson. Thanks for joining us. And now, here's Mike Huckabee.
What a great audience we have here in our theater. And boy, have we got a special show lined up. First of all, I mean, how many shows are able to get Bill Anderson, one of the greatest country artists of all time, to be the guest announcer? I'm so pumped about that. I've told Keith Bilbrey, Keith, you better get back here pretty quick. Bill may take your job. A little worried he may take my job. But I love Bill Anderson, love his music. But I'm going to tell you, I love him as a person. He's one of the nicest, kindest, most gracious, generous gentlemen you will ever meet in your life, and we are honored to have you here, Bill. Thank you.
Sir, for somebody that never made it above announcing in Commerce, Georgia, it's a great honor to be here.
Bill, I think you kind of made up for it, the country music legendary career that you've had with all the Grammys and everything else you've enjoyed. We're just thrilled. And also tonight, back here with the Music City Connection, because we were a little worried about Trey, could he pull it off? So we brought in a wonderful, amazing, one of the finest session piano players and keyboard players in the business.
And the planet.
And yeah, on the whole planet. That's pretty good. Gordon Moat, and he's going to be performing for us later in the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great to have you here, Gordon.
Thank you, Governor.
Well, I am often amused, but I am never amazed at how easily offended the left is about, well, pretty much everything. I mean, they're quite good at taking every issue and turning it into a reason for yelling a primal scream of racism. Recently, the state of Georgia passed some election reforms. I mean, they needed to in light of the disaster of the train wreck of the 2020 election process there. Governor Brian Kemp, who, by the way, is on our show tonight, and the legislature in Georgia, they worked really hard to make it easier to vote, but harder to cheat. And throughout the process of the bill, the governor and the legislators were in touch with citizens across the state, as well as with Georgia-based corporations like Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines. And you know, everybody seemed to agree that it would be good to expand voting opportunities. But they would have to require some form of ID to ensure that votes were cast by legally qualified Georgia voters. But after the bill passed and President Biden called it a resurrection of Jim Crow laws, something that the Washington Post said wasn't true, not even close, and that's amazing that they even admitted that, those very same corporate executives went all squishy. The CEO of Delta Airlines, which is the airline I fly on almost every week, said the bill didn't reflect Delta's values, but he never identified which values were not being reflected. The CEO of Coca-Cola also complained, but likewise couldn't name one specific problem with the law. In fact, a lot of people don't know this. Georgia expanded the number of days that one can vote early, and they made provisions to accommodate even Sunday voting. It did prohibit candidates or political parties from passing out food or beverages to people who were standing in voting lines. But it completely allowed for people to be given water or other items by the election officials. Now, you know what? It makes sense not to let political candidates give out beverages and food, which sure would seem to kind of violate the law of giving something of value for a vote. Heck, I might have got elected to more stuff if I'd handed out all sorts of things at the voting line. Major League Baseball was supposed to play the 2021 All-Star game in Atlanta, but the baseball commissioner was so upset at Georgia that he arbitrarily moved the game from Atlanta to Denver. The irony, as pointed out by many, was that in fighting a phony charge of racism, he actually moved the game from one of the blackest cities in America to one of the whitest. Figure. But the commissioner seems not to be too offended by Georgia, since he's still keeping his own personal membership at the Augusta National Golf Club, which of course is in Georgia. The outrage for companies like Woca-Cola, which is what I call them now. Catch that, Woca-Cola. Delta, Nike, and Major League Baseball is that they do a growing share of their business with communist China, which means they'd rather link up with and be partners with the Chinese communists than with the hardworking people of Georgia. The Chinese are slaughtering Uyghur Muslims, using children for slave labor, cheating on trade and intellectual property, and imprisoning people for even trying to speak out, much less vote on issues. I tweeted out last week, and this is what I said. I've decided to identify as Chinese. Coke will like me, Delta will agree with my values, and I'll probably get free shoes from Nike and tickets to Major League Baseball games. Ain't America great? Well, the next thing you know, I'm trending on Twitter, which is never a good thing. And I'm being called a racist because some knuckleheads in the media allege that I'm using hate speech on Asians. Huh? Are you kidding? It had nothing to do with ethnicity. And anyone with an IQ above stinkweed surely knows that. It was about hypocrisy and the duplicity of high-horsed globalist companies who look the other way while they make billion-dollar deals with China, but somehow pretend that Georgia is returning to racism and Jim Crow. It's so outrageous that even the Washington Post called Joe Biden out for lying. People were calling for me to be canceled and censored and demanding that I apologize. For what? Saying that it's hypocrisy for big companies to lie about the state of Georgia and try to bully the governor there, but then ignore the real abuses being conducted by the Communist Chinese Party? I will not back down. And I am so glad the governor of Georgia won't either. I got to be honest with you. We got to stop allowing the loons of the left to destroy the country with lies while Christian people are disparaged and called racist. We've got to stand for and speak out for the truth. By the way, I'm not calling for a boycott of Coca-Cola or Delta or even the cowardly commissioner of Major League Baseball. I just call for people to stand up, speak up, and stop surrendering to the insanity of calling everything racist so one doesn't have to actually discuss an issue or defend an irrational position. As my pastor used to say when I was just a kid, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And friends, it's time to stand. Well, Georgia has been in the news the past couple of weeks as Governor Kemp signed a bill into law that aims to reduce voter fraud. Critics have said the law is somehow racist. Instead of strengthening election integrity, they say it actually suppresses the vote. Joining us now to lay out the facts, Georgia Governor Kemp. Governor, first of all, I've read the bill. It does not suppress the vote. It makes it easier to vote in Georgia. It just makes it harder to cheat. What have the critics gotten wrong?
Oh, I think, well, thanks for having me on, Governor. I think they've gotten just about everything wrong. But as you and I both know, with that agenda that they have, they could really care less about the truth. I think they wrote the playbook on this plan that they had weeks ago when they reserved the domain name Jim Crow 2.0. And, you know, President Biden said the other night that this was Jim Crow on steroids. And I responded in an interview I did yesterday, this is the big lie on steroids. So we're fighting back with the truth. And, you know, I've done over 60 interviews now answering every question that anybody had for me. But none of the other folks that are, saying this is a bad bill are willing to do that, because they have yet to point out one specific in this bill that takes away the, opportunities for people to vote. And in fact, as you said, it expands it, but it also makes sure that we have election security. It's going to be easy to vote and hard to cheat.
There was a knee-jerk reaction on the part of some of the CEOs, Delta Airlines, what I now call Coca-Cola. They immediately just made these decisions, and yet, Governor, they could not point out not one specific area in the law that they had a problem with. They just simply took at face value that what was being said by some very hyper-partisan people was true. Have you had conversations with CEOs of some of these companies that were so, I guess, falsely outraged by the bill?
Yeah, I have not since they came out with their statement. And in fact, the disappointing thing about Delta is they had a statement that was really pretty good after I signed the bill, or maybe it was right before I signed it. Then after they got pressured, they completely changed their position. But governors, you know how the legislative process works. This has been going on for months in Georgia. Speaker Ralston created a committee even before the end of the year. Our session started the second Monday in January, so the middle part of January. That went on for 2.5 months, and all this work was done. And the thing that's so bad, really, for me about Delta and Coca-Cola is their government affairs folks were in the Capitol every day, and we were talking to them, a lot of the other business community. We were talking to local elections officials, the legislators. I mean, everybody was having their input, and they were fine when the final bill passed, and they were fine when I signed it. It was only after the cancel culture and the pressure came from Stacey Abrams and, quite honestly, the White House that they changed course, which is so disappointing, especially in regards to what's truly in this bill.
One day after President Biden, in an interview with ESPN, said the Major League Baseball All-Star game ought to be moved out of Atlanta, the commissioner actually moved the game, or at first just took it away from Atlanta, then later moved it to Denver. Somebody pointed out that he moved it from one of the blackest cities in America to one of the whitest cities in America, all in the name of racial equality. But let's talk about the economic impact and who that's going to hurt in Georgia. How much money will Atlanta and or Georgia lose because of the ball game being moved? And who are those people who get the gut punch from this really rash decision?
Governor, it's $100 million economic impact, or somewhere give or take around there, maybe a little more than that. And it's the guy that I saw on the news that owns a restaurant up there that was really banking on the All-Star game being there, having a, Super Bowl All-Star game, college football playoff game type weekend that, quite honestly, coming out of a global pandemic, these folks need. They've been suffering up there. There weren't any fans in the stands last year during the season. They've weathered through because of our measured approach. We're really looking to come out of this, and they're taking an economic gut punch, but they're also just, mentally, it's like this doesn't even seem rational that we're politicizing the great American pastime.
There were some issues in the Georgia election of 2020. The legislation that you guys worked on was to correct that so there would be greater levels of transparency, accuracy. Do you feel like this bill addressed the concerns that had surfaced as a result of the 2020 elections?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I mean, we're replacing an arbitrary signature match process because we had a 351% increase in absentee ballots by mail with the voter ID requirement. By the way, Governor, I thought it was very ironic that Joe Biden did the intro to the NCAA championship game the other night, where every one of those games was played in Indiana, which is the birthplace of photo ID. But this also secures ballot drop boxes. It makes sure that elections officials continuously count till every vote's tabulated, not starting and stopping or stopping in the middle of in the middle of the night, which really makes voters lose confidence in the process. And then, as we mentioned earlier, it expands early voting opportunities, especially on the weekends. And what's so ironic about this is every single Democrat has voted against expanding early voting on the weekends, and they voted against the voter ID requirement that 75% of Georgians support, and we've had in place since the mid-2000s here in Georgia.
Well, Governor, I just want you to know, I think there are a lot of people across the country who admire you for standing up and fighting back. It's what folks need to do when there's something on the line like voter integrity. So we want to say thank you for being with us and letting the people of the country understand what's really going on. We appreciate your time. And our viewers can follow at Brian Kemp GA on Twitter. You want to keep up with the governor in real time? That's how you can do it. Now, we've got our own very special guest announcer. He's a native Georgian. We're talking Whispering Bill Anderson, and he's standing by so he can shout about what we've got coming up next.
All right, Mike, tonight, comedian Chad Thornsberry and best-selling author Gordon Chang, and then Laugh with Mike and his In Case You Missed It news stories. Stay with us right here on Huckabee.
Well, I'm gonna take a trip in that good old gospel ship, y'all.
Welcome back. We just had to call the fire department here in Hendersonville where we do our show because Gordon Moat over there on the keyboard burned up those keys. I mean, he had this place smoking, folks. I'm telling you, what a job. Big hand for Gordon Moat.
Thank you, Governor.
And Trey Corley in the Music City Connection. You know, I about decided, Bill, that it's not just you that's in danger of losing a job. I think we may get rid of Trey and bring Gordon in. I mean, this is...
I'm done. I quit.
Well, that makes it easier on me. I don't have to actually fire you. That's so nice of you. No, we love Trey. We'll keep him because Gordon's too expensive. We can't afford him. We can afford Trey.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Wow.
Well, Chad Thornsberry is one of the most sought-after clean comedians working today. You'll find out why in just a moment. Maybe you've seen him on the Travel Channel, BET, many more. His dry bar comedy special, Junk Cars and Valet Parking, has nearly 50 million views. I want you to welcome the very funny Chad Thornsberry.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a real thrill for me to be here. They're treating me great. It's my first time here, and they're treating me really, really well. Like, they put me up at a great hotel, like a top-of-the-line 5-star hotel, which is great, except I'm not a top-of-the-line 5-star hotel kind of guy. I'm a guy that wears a jacket in front of people, so I only have to iron this part of my shirt kind of guy. I don't like a top... You know what a top-of-the-line 5-star hotel doesn't have? The complimentary breakfast. I need the complimentary breakfast. I don't care about the thread count of your pillowcases. I want free waffles. I love a free hotel. I love a free hotel breakfast so much, sometimes I'll have one at a hotel I didn't stay. And that is not a joke. So I'm pulling up to this building today, and I'm staring at this wonder of architecture. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna fit in this place at all. As I'm staring at it, the door to my truck opens. And out of the corner of my eye, as I'm turning, I see somebody start to get in. So just out of reaction, I just turn and shove this guy. And he kind of stumbles back. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He said, sir, I'm your valet. It's like, oh, sorry. But in my defense, I don't drive the kind of vehicle that you typically valet. I drive the kind of vehicle before somebody else gets in it, you have to start explaining things about it. And if anybody else ever had this, you know you have to give them that speech because you don't want anybody hurt, but you really don't want to admit what kind of death trap you're willing to drive on a daily basis, you know? Like, you're gonna park this? Yes, sir. Okay. Just so you know, probably won't even happen. But occasionally, if you make a really sharp left-handed turn and the defrost switch is slid all the way to the right, the back wheel pops off. I don't know. It's a wiring issue, I think. I don't know that. I'm not a mechanic. I'm just saying, instead of going down there and making that first left, you might want to go down one extra street so you can make 3 rights. Going to get you there a whole lot safer. That's what I would do. You're a grown man, make your own decisions, you know. And gets in there and watching, he's rattling my truck down the street. I'm like, okay, which way is he going to go? And he makes this big sweeping left. I'm like, all right, dude, you're on your own. I don't know how much clearer I could have been about that, in all honesty. Go in there, try to check in. And I said, I'm the comedian doing the show. And I said, okay. She said, your room's ready. She said, I just need a credit card. And I said, well, you know, the Huckabee show is kind of supposed to take care of my room. She said, no, they paid for the room. I just need your card for incidentals. Like, oh, okay, I'm not going to have any. And they go, no, incidental, that's just if you order a movie off TV, call down and get some room service. No, I know what the word means. I'm just explaining to you I'm not going to have any of this. And she kind of looks around, making sure nobody's around. And she goes, well, it's kind of just pretend. What are you talking about? How about I pretend to hand you a card? You can make believe to swipe it if it makes you feel better, I guess. And I'll for real go to sleep. She said, I can't unlock your room without a card on file. Okay, here's my card. And she runs, she goes, oh, I'm sorry, it was declined. My pretend charge just got rejected? I'm not a wealthy man. I thought I could afford free. She goes, no, we don't charge the card, but we put them out of a hold on it, and it wouldn't accept that amount. I said, how much was that amount? She said, $750. She's like, do you think our machines are malfunctioning? Nope. I think those are working perfectly. That's put my card out quick, didn't it? I was watching. Those are pretty good machines. But they ended up letting me in my room, which they didn't have to do. Very, very nice of them. They didn't have to do that. And all the years I've ever done this, I had never received a call on the hotel phone. And it was kind of weird. After a few minutes, my phone started ringing, and I walked in and I was like, hello? I said, yeah, this is Becky from downstairs. I was just wondering how your room looks. Have you never been up here? You can come up here and look around if you want. It's all right, I guess. It's not worth $750 and no waffles, but it's okay, I guess. She goes, I was just wondering if you had any concerns. I'm a little concerned your valet's not going to make it back. Guys, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Chad, come on over.
Yes.
You live in Missouri, right?
Yes, yes.
And that's where you grew up.
Grew up, always been there.
This has been a tough year for every performer, comedians, musicians. Yeah. What have you done in the course of the COVID shutdown when you couldn't go out and do live events?
Well, it's, there was a lot of things at home, a lot of Zoom shows. People were offering Zoom. And my wife, she's not used to me being home all that time at once. So now that things are starting to open up, she is thrilled that I get to get out of the house a little bit more often.
You think it's about you getting to get out? Is that why she's thrilled? Do you really believe that, Chad?
I don't know. But no, my dry bar came out, so that helped a lot. I still got to get notes and everything.
A lot of people may not even know what dry bar comedy is. So it's online.
Yes.
And explain how people can watch
you can
that.
go, you check it out, and it's been almost seen by about 50 million people. Just out of curiosity, a round of applause. Who's seen that? Yeah, that's about right.
Okay.
About 4.
There were more than that out there.
50 million people. I haven't met 6 people across the country that have ever seen it. It's unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah. And the thing is...
Well, some people watched it 24 times. I mean, that's part of the deal.
My mom's doing a great job watching it that often, yes. But no, it's the first thing I ever had that had enough traction where people would actually leave comments.
Yeah.
And I've never had that before. And the guy that got me, he just had a 4-word comment for my set, just 4 words, and it just said, a fat Harry Potter. And I was talking to my wife about this. She said, why do you let that bother me? I'm like, this guy called me a fat Harry Potter. I looked at him, I was like, Dane, do I look like Harry Potter? And she's like, Chad, you do not look like Harry Potter. I said, am I fat? And she said, Chad, you do not look like Harry Potter.
Well, we love having you here. We hope you'll have you back. Thank you for being here, Chad.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Delighted to have you. Bill Anderson, why don't you tell our viewers where they can see more of the hilarious Chad Thornsberry.
Absolutely, Mike. To see Chad's hit special, Junk Cars and Valet Parking, visit drivebarcomedy.com. And for Chad's CD, Smart Comedy from a Dumb Accent, plus funny videos, tour dates, and more, visit chadthornsberry.com. Next, author Gordon Chang on the coming collapse of China. And later, renowned musician Gordon Mote and his wife Kimberly. More on Huckabee is on the way. Go to MikeHuckabee.com and sign up for his free newsletter. And follow @GovMikeHuckabee on Twitter.
And welcome back. Gordon Chang is the go-to guy for expertise about China and how the U.S. must relate to the Chinese Communist Party, calling for civilizational war against America. He lived and worked in China for over 2 decades. He's a graduate of Cornell Law School, an author, a frequent commentator on China. I want you to welcome to the show a guy I respect as much as anybody I've ever known, and I'm delighted he's here. Please welcome Gordon Chang. Gordon, great to have you. You have written extensively and lectured extensively about the relationship that we have with China and why it is the single most important relationship we have. Explain to our audience why this is a really big deal.
It's a really big deal because the Communist Party has actually said that we are an enemy. In May of 2019, People's Daily, which is the most authoritative publication about China, declared a quote-unquote people's war on the U.S. And, you know, we have a president right now who doesn't understand the nature of that competition because this is existential. Those guys want to do us in.
So it's not just a matter of they'd like to be a little stronger economically. They really want to see us disappear.
Well, last year, they took steps to incite violence on American streets. They did that this year as well. You know, Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, he doesn't want to compete with us in the existing international system. He wants to overthrow it altogether because he drops hints about how China should be the world's only sovereign state, which means that everybody else, including America, should just be a colony.
Do you think the COVID virus originated in the labs of Wuhan rather than in the wet markets?
Yeah, I think so. You know, we don't know right now, Governor, but there are a lot of indications that it did come from that lab. Remember, they were storing more than 1,500 strains of coronavirus. They were engaged in these risky gain-of-function experiments. They weren't adhering to safety protocols, and the first known COVID case just arose just a few miles from the lab.
That is, it's frightening if it was accidental. It is even more frightening if they intentionally unleash this on the world just to be able to figure out what kind of damage they could do to the world economy.
Yeah, I think that it was an accidental escape from the lab, but it was an intentional release of the disease beyond China's borders. Xi Jinping, when he saw what the disease did to cripple China, he then, for at least 5 weeks and maybe much more, he lied about the contagiousness of this disease. He said it wasn't contagious when everybody in China knew that it was, and then he pressured countries to not impose travel restrictions and quarantines on arrivals from China while he was locking down his own country, which means he thought those lockdowns were effective, which means that he thought by forcing countries to take passengers from China, he was spreading the disease. So this was a malicious spread of the disease beyond China's borders.
A lot of American companies, big companies, make a lot of money doing business with China. Look, I understand we live in a global economy and, you know, right. If you run a company, you want to make as much money as you can for the shareholders. But what are the inherent dangers when an American company manufactures in China or sells to China or is basically a partner with the Communist Chinese Party in business? Yeah, there's so many dangers. For one thing, you know, we have a lot of our manufacturing in China. They could shut it off. And actually, they threatened to shut off the supply of pharmaceuticals and active pharmaceutical ingredients in the early stages of the coronavirus epidemic. So this is not just a theoretical concern. A lot of the electronics that we take for granted, we use every day, they're actually manufactured there, the parts are. I've heard security people say they're very concerned that built into and baked into these products are ways that the Chinese government are able to download our data, take all kinds of information, and they know more about us than we know about ourselves. Is there any truth to that?
Well, there certainly is. So, for instance, you got Huawei Technologies, which is the world's #1 manufacturer of telecom equipment. They were caught for 5 years surreptitiously downloading data from the headquarters of the African Union, which China donated and built. And they did that through Huawei servers. And there's Huawei equipment in our telecom networks. Now, we're ripping it out, but, you know, China's been able to steal stuff from us as they steal from the rest of the world.
There was a big sense in which President Trump pushed back pretty hard on China. He put trade sanctions on them. He just demanded that there be a cessation of the theft of intellectual property. What is the big difference between the way that he was approaching China and the way that President Biden is approaching China?
You know, Biden, I'll just give you one example. May 1st, 2020, President Trump initiated an executive order which prohibited American electric companies and grid operators from buying equipment from China because it could be sabotaged. Well, within hours of taking the oath of office, Biden repealed that executive order. You know, there's no justification for doing that. There were so many giveaways in those initial executive orders to China, and Biden didn't get anything in return from the Chinese. So, you know, the Chinese are just laughing at us because he's just given everything away.
Gordon, there's a reason that I love listening to you. When I watch you come on television, I turn everything else off and I say, watch this because it's going to be worth watching. You just reminded me again tonight why I feel that way. I want to say thank you for your time and your insights tonight. And for our audience, please read all of Gordon's columns, and you can do that by going to gordonchang.com. Plus, find all of Gordon's books, including the latest book of his called The Great U.S.-China Tech War. You can get that anywhere that books are sold. It is a must-read. And you can also find Bill Anderson ready and waiting to tell us what we've got coming up next.
Absolutely. Next is Mike's funny news stories on In Case You Missed It. Their award-winning musician Gordon Mote will be here with his wife Kimberly. It's all coming up on Huckabee.
There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you read for victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Blood of the Lamb.
All right, we're going to give another hand to Trey Corley and the Music City Connection because, I mean, they're kind of showing out over there tonight. So, but they deserve a little bit of appreciation for what they're doing with guest artist Gordon Mote sitting in with them tonight.
Thank you.
Well, from a Hitchcock movie come to life to an Italian chef who, well, he didn't use his noodle. We've got the news that nobody really needs to know on our segment we call In Case You Missed It. All right, first of all, here is a story that you're going to be raving about. Some thieving ravens are making life miserable for some Costco shoppers in Anchorage, Alaska. The birds hang out in the parking lot where they figured out how to distract shoppers while their accomplices swoop in and steal food right out of their grocery carts. One man who lost a rib, I mean a pork rib, not his actual rib. They really aren't Alfred Hitchcock birds, but this man was quoted as saying, "These birds know what they're doing. They're very fat, so I think they've got a whole system there." Well, I wish the Senate Republicans were that well organized. That would be something to crow about. I hear some groaning out there in the audience. Thank you for laughing, Bill, because nobody else did.
As Keith told me, he said, whenever Mike says something, laughs.
Yeah.
Wow.
He had to tell you that, huh? Wow, that makes me feel really funny, doesn't it?
It's actually funnier than that joke.
Yeah, probably so. Okay, so last week, the U.S. Strategic Air Command sent out a mysterious Twitter tweet that was nothing but gibberish. Was it a secret code? Maybe it was a missile attack, a UFO invasion. No, somebody just left their computer unattended, and his toddler wandered in, tapped on the keyboard, and hit send. You see, I think this is why even the Democrats don't want President Biden to have the nuclear codes. Hey, it's a good thing that guy didn't have a pet raven, or we'd be bombing Costco right now. Anyway, officials reassured the public that there was nothing to be concerned about. Well, nothing other than maybe toddlers being in command of the government, but you knew that already, right? Yeah. All right, from our Huck's Criminal Mastermind desk comes the story of alleged mafia drug trafficker Mark Farron Claude Biart. What a name. He fled Italy, and for 7 years, police searched everywhere, but they couldn't find him. Well, this is until they put on YouTube, and they saw him hosting his own Italian cooking series in the Dominican Republic. I don't think he understands what it means to be on the lam. I mean, it was a pretty saucy move, right? Some might even say that it was cheesy. That one really died. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, he didn't show his face on camera, and he was using a fake name, Muscles Marinara.
What?
I said Muscles Marinara, his fake name. Anyway, the cops, you know how they recognized him? By the tattoos on his arms. I mean, who else has a meatball tattoo? That was a dead giveaway. But now, just like Chef Boyardee, he's in the can. Yeah. They're turning on me. They're turning on me, Bill.
I think I'm finding out why Keith took the night off.
Yeah, I think you are. I think you're exactly right. All right, here's a story about some kangaroos that you'll get a real kick out of. Researchers, you see, they didn't even get that one either. Anyway, researchers studying some wild kangaroos that were in captivity discovered that if they were given food in a box, they would stare at the researchers until they opened the boxes. They believe it was the kangaroo's way of asking for help. Or maybe it was their way of saying, "Are you nuts? We're kangaroos. We can't open boxes." So the scientists say this proves that animals don't have to be domesticated like dogs to ask humans for help. They think other animals do it too. Birds do it, bees do it, even educated fleas do it. And cats and Democrats sit around expecting it. Yes. Unfortunately, the experiment was ruined when the kangaroos finally got the boxes open and some ravens stole their food. All right, finally, if you think the candy bars in your office's vending machines are stale, well, someone looking through the attic of a manor house in England found a tin containing a chocolate bar that was 121 years old. It was actually a gift for New Year's Day of 1900 from Queen Victoria to veterans of the Second Boer War. A historian said that the chocolate is in remarkably good condition, but you wouldn't want to eat it for Easter, because only Peeps are still edible after 121 years.
This is very true.
That's right.
Very true.
Well, Peeps and fruitcakes, they're still edible after 121 years.
Very true.
So if you do want to try eating it, first, search your attic for George Washington's wooden teeth to chew it with. Yep.
That didn't help, I'm sorry.
It didn't help at all. Well, just like facts at a White House press conference, it's time to make ourselves scarce. But always remember, we read the news.
Coming up next, gospel music artist Gordon Mote and his wife Kimberly. They sit down with Mike on Huckabee. Don't miss Huckabee next week with Mike's guests, President Donald Trump and advocates Oveda King and Ginger Howard.
Welcome back. Gordon Mote has been awarded the top keyboard Piano Player of the Year, not once, twice, but 3 times by the Academy of Country Music. His undeniable piano talent has made him an A-list Nashville Sessions player for people, like Bob Seger, George Strait, Lionel Richie, and Blake Shelton, just to name a few, and there are a lot of others. Gordon's latest solo project is called Love, Love, Love. It was nominated at the 61st Annual Grammy Awards for the Best Roots Gospel Album of the Year. Gordon joins me now with his wife, Kimberly. Please welcome remarkable musical couple, Mr. and Mrs. Gordon Mote.
Thank you. Thank you so
Great
much.
having you guys.
Thank y'all. Thank you, Governor.
Gordon, thank you for sitting in with the band. It's obvious you kind of like music.
I love all those guys. We play a lot together in the studios, and Trey does such a fine job with the Music City Connection.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
And, if you could find a place for me in this little band, I would do my best to laugh at whatever that was you called a while ago, that humor thing.
Gordon, you are hired.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
I laugh at Bill Gaither's jokes.
Well, then you'll laugh at mine. No doubt about that.
That's right.
Yeah, you were blind since birth,
Yes.
but started playing piano at the rather ripe old age of 3. How do you even play piano when you're 3 years old? I can't even understand that.
I'm not sure. It was just, the only way you can explain it is just a miracle from God. I mean, that God is the only one that can do something like that. Thanksgiving Day at my family's house, my grandmother had an old upright piano, and everybody was cooking, playing, watching football, all the stuff that families do. We had a big family back in those days. And they heard the piano, and everybody wondered who it was. And when they came in, they couldn't believe what they saw, because what they saw was me, little bitty guy, 3 years old, playing with both hands, Jesus Loves Me, which is very...
It was just natural to you, is that
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
that is a gift from God. There's no other way to explain that.
That's right.
As you grew up and started playing, did you think, well, this is going to be my career, my life? I mean, was that your hope?
Well, I sure hoped that I could do something in music, because I don't know how to flip burgers or anything like that. I don't think I'd be a very good landscaper, although...
I've seen some others who weren't very good at that either.
I really, hoped that I could do something in this town, but I never dreamed that I would be able to do what God's allowed me to do. I've had an amazing career. If it all ended today, which I pray it doesn't, I'd have some kids I need to get through college.
Yeah.
But if it did, I don't have anything to complain about. And it's not just about the music, it's about the relationships. I mean, off air, backstage a little bit ago, you see how close all us guys are. And we love each other, and we love each other's families. And so it's not just about making the music, but the relationships help you make better music, I think.
Kimberly, where did you meet Gordon? Where did you guys get together? And was it love at first sight?
We like
Love
to
at
say
first
it was love
sound.
at first sound.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Of course it was.
We met at Belmont. Both went to college
Yeah.
at Belmont University, both vocal performance
She
majors.
graduated summa cum laude. Isn't that impressive? Yeah.
Yeah, that's top of the ladder.
Yeah. I, on the other hand, graduated thank the Lord. So just get rid of it. So,
Kimberly, what was it that attracted you to Gordon?
Oh, wow.
make it good, baby.
Yeah, okay.
Make it good.
You know what? Gordon was always a people magnet. Everybody
Yeah.
loved Gordon. He was just fun to be around. I think one of the things that amazed me right away about him is that you forgot that he was blind. I mean, he was just so easy to be around and so fun. He pursued me pretty quickly.
Yes, I did.
Very wise man. Very wise man indeed.
She turned me down.
For just a minute.
Yeah.
For just a
More than
minute.
that.
I was
it
like,
seemed like a long
wow.
time.
But you know what? I have a memory of kind of wrestling with the Lord about this relationship.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so why not? Why couldn't I marry this guy? And you know what? He had every quality that I ever wanted in a guy, and the only drawback was that he couldn't drive. And I decided that just didn't matter very much.
There's a lot of people driving these days that don't, that shouldn't be.
I was thinking the same
I
thing.
could give it a shot.
Gordon, before we go do some music, I got to ask you, you've worked with so many legends in the music business and been their session keyboard player.
Right.
You're a go-to guy for that. Are there any that just kind of revved your motor and you thought, wow, I cannot believe I am getting to do a session with fill in the blank?
Oh, man. Well, there's been so many cool moments. I think the most giddy I ever got was when I got called to go do Lionel Richie. Because, you know, you grow up playing all those Commodore songs. I'm from Alabama. They were from Tuskegee. And so, I mean, but I've gotten to play with some of the greatest entertainers, both in secular music and Christian music. You know, I got to travel for a long time with the legendary Bill Gaither. And, you know, I went from just, you know, kind of knowing him a little bit to now producing the Gaither Vocal Band. And this is my 4th album I'm working on now. So I've been very, very blessed. But the biggest blessing is, honestly, I mean, the artists are so cool. They're just normal people. But getting to work with session guys like this band here, that's what gets me going. It's just making music with all my buddies.
Having you here is a great thrill and an honor for us. And I want everybody to get a copy of Gordon Mote's Love, Love, Love. It's available everywhere music is sold. You're going to want to find out more about it. And especially after you hear Gordon's song, you'll want to get the album Love, Love, Love. For more information, go to GordonMote.com. And after the show, go to Huckabee.tv for an online exclusive performance of Gordon's love song to Kimberly. It's titled, If They Could See You Through My Eyes. Gordon's going to be performing right after the break, and I get to join him, so don't you even think about going away.
Now here to perform with Trey Corley and the Music City Connection, and Mike joining in on the bass is our buddy Gordon Mote.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bill Anderson. I love you, buddy. Your day's already fallen to pieces, and you just stumbled out of bed. You ain't even poured your coffee, and the voice of fear is filling up your head. You're anxious about tomorrow when you ain't even lived today. Yeah. You've got time to worry, then you've got time to pray. Just take it to the Lord, drop your troubles at his door, turn around and leave them there. Why carry all your burdens when I know for certain it's the weight that the Lord can bear? Don't waste a minute dreading or live a life regretting all the moments you've been fretting away. Yeah, 'cause if you've got time to worry, then you've got time to pray. You're looking out across the valley, and it sure does seem wide and deep. Who knows what's awaiting in the shadows? The uncertainty's got you losing sleep. But you can kneel on knees that are knocking. It just takes a little bit of faith, you know it does. You've got time to worry, and you've got time to pray. Just take it to the Lord, drop your troubles at his door, and turn around and leave them there. fretting away. 'Cause if you've got time to worry, then you've got time to pray. If you've got time to worry, then you've got time to pray. All right. Woo! You've got time to pray. All right. Yeah. Give it up for this band and these great singers, Kimberly Moat and Debbie Selby. Give it up for them.